from the boardroom. More microtransactions, please. Ignore the backlash, bring them to their knees. Todd smiles from his vault of endless gold, while gamers rage quit, feeling bought and sold. But way to twist the orchestra rebels. Symphony of satire, ringing corporate bells. Final Thought. Oh, the great symphony plays on forevermore. Todd Howard's lesson etched in lore. Re-release the pain, hike the price again. Mediocre empires, where does it end? Xbox greed lords, here our metal roar. Will pirate your seas or just play no more? And test your fury in the key of good night. Microsoft, turn off the light.
Now, everybody, please bow your head out of respect for our next song, after which the stream will begin.
Imagine a hero shooter where the hero never showed. Imagine a game with a player base that just refused to grow. A 5v5 hero shooter with gameplay that's just okay, and characters that remind me of Tupperware and white bread. No, I'm not talking about Overwatch. Please stop bringing up Overwatch. This game is not Overwatch. It's actually something else. Imagine a game with a story that no one watches. A game that costs $40 that Sony totally botches. It has all my favorite characters, like Lemmy, Dawn, and Craig. At least, I think that's what their names are. I never bothered to check. Concord like the grave, your legacy is safe. As a game that no one played, and a price that no one paid. Boop-a-doop-ah, deep-a-doop-da, scoop-a-boop-ah, beep-beep-beep-beep-beep, phlegm. Concord was about as good as accidentally peeing on your own leg. Concord, we're here to lay you to rest. We know you tried your best. You copied so much cool stuff just to turn out lame in the end. I'll never forget my favorite moments, like when Hot Sauce Guy jumped. Remember when he jumped? That was really cool. A rat just ran by on my desk, and even the rat didn't want to play Concord, even though I blessed him with the chance. The $40 he could afford, but the rat just stared on in a trance. Rat, 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 rat. Concord's dead. Rat, 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 rat. Concord's dead. The Costco guys made more money than you. They were just on Jimmy Fallon too. Imagine Lennox being on Jimmy Fallon, because I literally can't. The rat on my desk is eating all my Cheerios and grapes, and also Concord is dead. Concord like the grave, your legacy is safe. As a game that no one played, and a price that no one paid. Rat-a-ta-ta-beep-a-dap. Skim, milk, the rat fleet, doo-da, doo-da. A guy said he really liked it, and then a bunch of rats ate his face. Concord's dead, and boy is my face red. When the game came out, everybody overslept. Concord's dead, Concord's dead. Holy crap, Lois, Concord's dead. When the game out, people played everything else instead.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. 'Tis a blessed day. 'Tis. Now that you are here, everything's better. Hi. I missed you. I missed you all. We're going to have a good day. We're going to have a good talk. We're going to go through a handful of things. The fallout from the Xbox stuff continues. Shocker. It's not getting better. We're going to talk about some other stuff because actually IGN had some interesting little tidbits. We got the first numbers from the Black Ops 7 beta, which I didn't even realize was happening, which perhaps is part of the problem. And they're not looking amazing in comparison to the competition. And it's going to be interesting because again, there's just a handful of little things about the Xbox stuff that continue to be revealed in the aftermath of all this, and it just keeps looking worse and worse. So buckle up. Buckle up. First of all, may Todd bless you and shine his detail upon you. May he give you 16 times the detail and allow you to climb the mountains that you can see. Amen. There we go. Todd and his spiced pumpkin scent will join us for the stream as the patron saint of Xbox. He is here to watch over us and to bless our subscriptions. I did officially cancel my Game Pass subscription. I actually did some napkin math, and honestly, like, I replied to one dude. Who was it? There was somebody on, was it Jez Corden or something? Basically, Jez, I think it was Jez. He posted and he was like, honestly, who is actually canceling their membership? Because I think there's some people that think that most of the outrage is just contrived and forced. But I honestly canceled it. And I'm somebody that can eat like a $10 price increase. Like, it's not going to break the bank for me. And plus, it's like a business write-off. So doubly, I can excuse it. But for me, the $30 price jump, for one, is just kind of icky. Two, I think it's a big enough price jump for Ultimate that it's caused people to kind of like wake up and reevaluate. When you do small incremental increases of like $1 here, $1 there, you can kind of just like hand wave it away. You're like, it's not worth really even thinking about because it's like a rounding error, and you just move on with your day and you forget about it until the next price increase. And if you slowly boil the frog, eventually, you finish boiling it and it's dead, but it didn't even realize it was being boiled. The problem with this is that they just dropped us into a boiling pot of water and are like, why are you acting so upset, you know? So I think that there's a component where people want to punish it for feeling gross and icky and for Microsoft overstepping so much, because it's not just this, it's also like, you got to consider the fact that they also raised the price on all the consoles, and they've done multiple other price increases, which I think is part of it. But beyond that, there is also a component that I think is crucial to remember, which is just simply that $30 is so much money that it used to be, if you wanted to get Game Pass versus buying a game at full price, you were basically getting 3 months of whatever games you wanted in the library, or you could buy the one game you wanted. Now that math has shifted, so for a lot of these games, which are maybe like $40, $50 games, some of them sure are releasing at 70, or if Microsoft had their way, 80. But I think that it's caused people to reevaluate and go, is this actually that good of a deal? Because like this year, what games did I actually want to play that Xbox launched on the service? I mean, you could say maybe you were really into Avowed, maybe. You could say maybe you were really into like Doom. But like those are two games. And then, if you think about it more abstractly, you break it down and you're like, oh, $30 a month. So I didn't need the subscription the first 4 months of the year, like Oblivion remake. Okay. but that was the same period as well. So the first 4 months I could get rid of it. The latter 6 months I could get rid of it. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Like, there were people on X, like, we all know these guys are just going to sign up for the subscription again the moment that a game they like drops. Yeah, when a game drops that they like, they might sign up and pay for it and then cancel again. But that's the age-old problem with these subscription models, is that if you only have one thing that you're really interested in, you don't need a year-long subscription to that service for that one thing you want. If all I want to do is watch K-pop Demon Hunters, which is like on Netflix. It's like a Netflix. Is it Netflix exclusive? I think it is. Is it? No, it is. And if that's what I want to see and I want to see that movie, I can sign up for a month and then I can delete my account or cancel it or pause it, whatever. And you just move on. You know, you just move on with your day. Or if you really want to own it, you go buy a Blu-ray or you go buy it on Amazon Prime or whatever else you want to do. It doesn't make sense to keep your membership for the entire year for that one movie you were interested in. Just the math doesn't math. And I think people are willing to ignore the math when the price is low enough that it's not really that big of a hassle. But with this massive price jump, it's caused people to kind of stir awake and go, oh, wait, no, this doesn't make sense. And the other interesting thing about this is I think it so obviously reveals the intention with the $80 price point for Outer Worlds 2. Because again, you got to remember, even though they walked it back, they didn't want to. Microsoft's plan was to release this game for $80. And I don't think the game looks bad. I think the game looks pretty good. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good Obsidian, like, solid open world adventure sci-fi game. That's what they're good at. They're pretty good at making RPGs. They're not the Obsidian of like 2010, but they make solid games. Not masterpieces as far as I've seen recently, but you know, solid games. Really quintessential Game Pass games. Games that you probably wouldn't be that thrilled at paying full AAA price for, but included in a subscription where you're getting other stuff too, you're pretty happy about it. But they wanted to raise the price of this to $80. 80. And they were basically bullied into lowering the price back down to 70 because I think nobody was pre-ordering it. I think like they did that. The outrage was crazy. They were like, people are just being loud, but nobody pre-ordered it. And they're like, oh, shoot. Okay, so we can't just do that. But then it starts to make sense. If you're raising the price of all of your subscription tiers, even the lower ones, from $11 or $12 to 16, and then you raise the other one from $20 to $30, and you're raising all the prices, if you raise the AAA price of buying it outright on Steam, then the math is more compelling because like, actually, I mean, yeah, the subscription's $30, but that's a lot cheaper than the $80 I'd have to pay to buy it outright. Like, it's all about just stepping all of it up step by step by step. The difference is they weren't allowed or they weren't able to get away with the $80 price hike. And I think part of it is that there's obviously just going to be a lot of resistance. PC gamers also especially don't tend to be very tolerant of that type of thing. But secondly, I just think this was like the worst possible game that, maybe not the worst possible, that's hyperbolic. It was not a good game for them to try and start going $80 with. You know, Elder Scrolls 6, you want to charge $80 for that? I won't be happy about it, but I get it. Like, I get what you're doing. It's a big IP. It's a game people have waited for forever. I'd understand it. Like, I'd get why they would do that. I'd hate it, but I'd get it. But Outer Worlds 2, really? Like, that's what we're starting as the $80 price hike? That's where we're starting? It's just weird. But I think it was that they wanted to set the standard. And then when, like, Elder Scrolls 6 comes out at $80, it feels like a discount. But mark my words, they are not done with the $80 price point. They're going to return to that. They just walked it back for Outer Worlds 2. And they said for this year, we're not going to 80. But they're going to go back. They're going to reevaluate pricing next year. You better believe it. You think Ultimate is going to stop at $30? No, dude. Some people are hoping that they walk it back and they end up going back down to like maybe 25 or 20. I'd be shocked. But
Mr.
even if they
Mo
did, they're going to raise it
donated
later.
$9.99 through Super Chat.
Thank you, Mr. Mo.
Went and saw The Witcher in concert last night.
Oh, hell yeah.
Co-producer of the game Percival was there and they played music from The Witcher 4 at the end.
Oh,
Such a great experience. Highly recommend going.
I've actually considered going. I don't know. Witcher in concert. An immersive live experience. Buy tickets. Yeah, it seems really cool. Chicago, Georgia. They are coming to the Springs and then to... Oh, damn it, dude. Crap. Yeah, I'm on vacation during this time. I'm not here. Crap. Bummer, dude. I'd have to fly somewhere to hear it. That sucks. Bummer. Anyway, I'm glad that you had a good time. That's awesome. That's awesome. I've heard only good things about it. I have a couple friends that have gone that live elsewhere, and they said it was really cool. So I'm glad to hear it. Canceling the vacay. Yeah, I'm sure Nikki will be thrilled. Hold on, let me catch up on these real quick. Brushborn Studios, thank you for the 2. Game hymns with Luke is what we're all here for, indeed. People have asked me if I can put together an album of these AI songs, and I'm like, that feels weird. That feels weird. If you're in our Discord, I have a server, or I have a channel where I've linked all of them, so you can listen to them if you want. But yeah, making an album, I'm not so sure. I've thought maybe we make like little music videos for them. That could be funny. Joaquin, thank you for the 32 months. Taylor Swift listening party today. How dare you? How dare you? Thank you for the 5. Did you see IGN's post about Sony first-party games getting boring? I don't know if we play the same games or it's just an IGN moment. Yes, I have it pulled up. We're going to talk about it because I do find that interesting. Joe, thank you for the 2. So incompetent, they can't even boil a frog properly. Yeah, they're like, oh, we have to slowly boil the frog. And they just chucked it into the fryer, but like slammed it on the side of the fryer at the same time. So they like cracked its neck, paralyzed it, fell into the oil. And they're like, what do you mean he's unhappy? Like that's basically Xbox's pricing strategy right now. They're like, okay, now I'm the bad guy. Yes, you are. Mr. Mo, again, thank you for the 10. That was very, very generous. Blake, thank you for the 5. Got to pick one, Yote or Shadows. Personally, for me, I think Yote. I think that the open world exploration is more. I think it's better. I think it's better. It's more immersive. That's not going to come as a surprise to anybody who knows the types of games I like. I like more immersive games that don't hold your hand. And I think AC Shadows took a really good step in the right direction after Valhalla, because I thought Valhalla was like the definition of everything wrong with like junk food open world games. But it's still not quite there. It's still not there. But I hope that they get there.
donated $20 through Super Chat.
Hell yeah.
What infuriates me about Game Pass marketing is them emphasizing flexibility when we can't pick and choose benefits also. Can we talk about how they didn't put Sarah Bond or Phil on that marketing clip? They knew.
Yeah, they knew that it was going bad. I mean, I think one of the interesting things that's not really been too discussed. Do I have a tab for it? I don't. I guess we can lead into this because I do think this is interesting. New sort of segment. We'll see if Jacob or Trevor can salvage something. So Wilfredo with the 20. What infuriates me about Game Pass marketing is them emphasizing flexibility when we can't pick and choose benefits. Also, we can talk about how they didn't put Sarah Bond or Phil on that marketing clip they knew. I think they did know that this would go over poorly, and I think that there's a few different angles to it. I don't think it's as straightforward as some people have made it out to be, where they're like, they're just raising prices. I think all of this is part of a broader strategy that I think is stupid.
The Yeastivus donated $9.99 through Super Chat.
That's awesome.
Luke, you said spaghetti web in your Ghost of Yote video. That was an amazing saying that made my day.
I'm glad. Yes, the Ghost of Yote video did go up this morning. You should watch it if you haven't already, because I talk a bit about my overall impressions. If you guys are interested, I'll do like a full deep dive on my thoughts on it, because I've played it. I have I have robust thoughts.
The Players Archive
so let me know.
donated
Let me know.
£20 through Super Chat.
That's a great name.
Hey Luke, love the content.
Thank you, my
Been
friend.
deep into KCD2 since last week.
Hell yeah.
Could you do a proper critique on it? Also, why is no one talking about Cuttenberg's Smuggler's Tunnels plus the dead vampire?
Glad to pick this up. I think there may be some returning to it. As for doing a big critique on it, I'd very much like to. My stance has been that I want to do a brand new playthrough from the start when all the DLC are out, and like play through it from the beginning with all the expansions and all the DLC, because especially like the blacksmith or smithy one, that one will really change how you go through the base game. So I'm guessing maybe like early next year we could get to it, but I would love to revisit it and do a deep dive on it because I genuinely love that game. And there's a lot of fun little secrets and stuff tucked away in there. I'll tell you what. But thank you guys for the very generous super chats and stuff. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. And also to E1 Rax, L Rax maybe. Thank you for the sub with Prime over there. Obi-Juan also with 7 months of subs over on Twitch. Hi Luke, is there something special about gaming with Microsoft and EA buyers shoveling tens of billions of dollars into the industry, or is it just another revenue source to them? Also, I can't believe you bricked your computer just to hide the candle cut from us. Yeah, I mean, what candle cut? I've never heard of that. Do I think there's something special about it? I think only insofar as the money is starting to concentrate and a lot of investors are looking for opportunities. Because here's all you really need to know about like stocks. This is hyper simplified, but it kind of demonstrates the point. And then I swear to God, I'm going to talk about this finally. There's only so many buckets, right? In markets. There's like real estate, right? I'll go smaller. There's like real estate. There's like, maybe we say venture capital. There's like, I don't even know how to break all this down, but there's different categories. There's like real estates or REITs if you're trading in stocks, real estate investment trusts. There's venture capital opportunities, things that aren't publicly traded, maybe just all privately held, but you can get in. Think like Shark Tank type deals. There's other ones where you can buy like blue chip stocks, like the big iconic stuff. You can trade in ETFs and stuff, but ultimately like there's only so many buckets for you to throw money at. And just by nature of competition, eventually the buckets will all kind of reach equilibrium, where in theory they should be priced either fairly or sometimes they can be overvalued. Most investors right now feel that blue chip stocks are super overvalued. You're paying way too much for what the company is. Venture capital is really hard to get into and it's super risky. Real estate is kind of underperforming right now because rates are low and it looks like the market's probably going to go through a bit of a downturn for a handful of years, maybe even a decade. ETFs, by their very nature, tend to be very balanced, so there's not like a lot of opportunities to get in there and do stuff. So investors are looking for places to throw money, especially like investors that are looking for big returns. And so they're looking for places where they can park money that has high growth opportunities. AI is, by pretty much every metric, a bubble. Even the people like Sam Altman agree it's a bubble. They're like, we just hope that we're part of the bubble that survives when it pops. So where do speculative investors throw their money? How about an up and coming form of entertainment that's only getting more popular among young people who will soon be older people with more money? Oh, video games. Let's throw money there. And so they start investing heavily into places like Roblox or into EA, into Microsoft to get a taste of their exposure to it, Sony for their exposure to it. So I think it's more that they just see an opportunity within the market and they think that it's worth getting in there. Is it anything super special or crazy? I don't think so. I think it's just kind of par for the course. But as for their buying of EA specifically, I think they're overpaying. I've read a lot about it the last few days, and I do not see what they see. Now, I am not buying multi-billion-dollar companies, so clearly they're very smart. They see something I don't.
Rafi89 donated 100
And they're
Swedish
seeing
kroner
something a
for
lot of other
Super
people
Chat.
don't.
I have always been an Xbox fan, have them all consoles. But I am sad that they took the route we all knew they would take in the end. Lucky I got a new 5070 Ti PC.
You're damn right. You're damn right. You're lucky. Welcome to the PC Master Race, my friend. And yes, I think it's just, they've chosen the route they want to go. Speaking of this, continuing on, I guess I'll just reintroduce this. News, man. So Wilfredo sent a super chat a few minutes ago asking basically describing how frustrating it is that Microsoft is framing everything about their current strategy around flexibility, but then nothing is actually very flexible about it at all. And then also, conveniently, Phil and Sarah and all of the leadership at Xbox were largely absent from all of these announcements about price hikes and everything else. And I think all of that is part of the strategy. I think all of it kind of combines into what's happening. But over the last few days, I've done a lot of reading and investigations into what is probably going on behind the scenes, because there's kind of a few different ways of looking at it. On the one hand, some people are saying that this is purely just like Phil Spencer being greedy. He's like, I just want to boost revenue for Xbox, so I get a bonus from Papa Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft. So I'm just going to crank the dials and rip off the knobs, and we're going to call it good. And I'm going to burn down this house before I leave at the end of the generation. Maybe. I personally don't think that's super likely. Other people are saying, oh, well, maybe, this is because they're losing money elsewhere with other projects and games that they're trying to put together. And so they're trying to save money or get increased revenue by cranking the prices up. That's probably a component of it. Others are trying to blame it entirely on things like tariffs and inflation, which certainly has an impact. That's not it's not a zero on the percentage scale of influence on all of this stuff. Yes, inflation is a thing and that will affect pricing for everything. So sure. But what's been interesting is over the last few days, if you look at Microsoft's social media pages, most of their like marketing has been framed around the push for cloud streaming. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I wonder if I can find that post real quick. I should have bookmarked it. But a lot of their marketing has started to shift towards not just third-party hardware, such as, the ROG Xbox Ally X, which is a third-party device, but is also being marketed with heavy utilization of like xCloud and streaming there. But also, one of the big things that they mentioned in terms of updates and upgrades with Xbox Game Pass with this price hike was cloud streaming going to every tier. Now, there's different tiers of cloud streaming that, it's important to bring up, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. I saw Legendary Drops grabbed a screenshot here. One of Xbox Game Pass's hidden changes, and arguably one of the most disgusting for the future of the hobby, is that they are now monetizing game quality and resolution. As you can see here, they mentioned in their overall blog post describing what's changing, the different resolutions and quality levels that you can expect to get based on the tier that you're paying for. So if you're paying for Essential, you can stream it up to 1080p, roughly 10 to 17 megabit per second connection is what's needed. Premium, same thing. Ultimate, though, you can stream it up to 1440p, up to 27 megabits per second, which for handheld streaming, like honestly, yeah, you're talking about a device that's like this size. You don't need 4K. So, it's not that crucial. But I do think that all of this, as they've continued to push the cloud streaming stuff, it made me kind of realize something, especially as I was reading some of the other articles, and even like on MSNBC, when they were talking about this from a finance perspective, or rather CNBC, or Bloomberg was talking about this on their channels. All of the focus is on cloud streaming. Now, why might Microsoft want to put a lot of effort into pushing engagement through cloud streaming? I think it really comes down to one of the other things that's happening within Microsoft. Where are they putting $80 billion a year? they're putting it in heavy investments into their server infrastructure through Azure and through all of the other stuff that they're doing. Microsoft has an incredible suite of products when it comes to server infrastructure. A lot of them are being built up specifically with like AI in mind, with Copilot, OpenAI, and all of that stuff. But OpenAI's usefulness and AI tools in general's usefulness within the workplace, and Copilot certainly has been called into question. So when Satya goes to investors and shareholders, he needs to be able to argue that these servers are being utilized, that the investment is worth it. How do you do that? Well, you can also do that by pointing to overall engagement and utilization that comes from other products within their library and repertoire, such as cloud streaming. So what is one way you can push people into cloud streaming games more? Well, you get them onto a subscription service where you introduce it and it becomes very, very easy. How do you also push people towards cloud streaming games? Well, maybe you make it prohibitively expensive to get into actually playing the games locally on your own hardware. That's a component of it. If it's so expensive for somebody to buy a $800 premium 2 terabyte console, then they might pause and go, well, I mean, streaming is pretty nice. I could also just stream it. I have a decent internet connection. I'll just stream my games. I don't need a console. And what's the other big push they're doing? They're doing partnerships with companies like Samsung. I don't know if you've tried to buy a Samsung TV recently, but dude, all over the damn thing is, where is it? I wonder if I can even pull up like a random TV and find the marketing stuff describing it. Some of these TVs though, they have like the built-in Xbox, xCloud, whatever streaming. And so part of the marketing push is to allow you to play games. Yeah, a world of content at your fingertips. Wow. All this free content, right? All these apps. You can play games streamed straight to your TV. You don't need no stinking console. You pair your controller straight to your TV. Look at this, dude. Gaming experience. No console required. You see, they've got Fortnite, they've got GeForce Now, Xbox Luna. It's all cloud streamed games straight to your TV. This is Xbox's vision for the future, pretty clearly. So I think like all the price hikes for actually owning games, all the price hikes for the hardware, it's all meant to kind of push you towards the one service in the form of Game Pass, where you subscribe to the thing and then you can play the games through the cloud on all of your devices, right? Play Xbox on these Xboxes, and they show the Z Fold 7. Shout out Z Fold 7. I think this is actually the 6. I think this is last gen. But anyway, they show the folding phone, they show the laptop, the handheld, the Xbox, and the TV. They are all equal in the eyes of Phil. All of this, I think is going towards the vision that was set out 3, 4, 5 years ago by Phil and his team, which is just ultimately that they see it as they want you to be subscribed to Game Pass, and that is your one platform where you pay every month and you can play and watch and consume on any device you want, because convenience is the ultimate deciding factor. And yes, $30 a month is expensive for the ultimate tier. $16 for the other tier, $12 for the other, whatever it is. Yeah, those can be pricey, and the prices are only going to continue going up, just like they did with cable, just like they did with everything else. But it's all meant to try and get you locked into the ecosystem. Because if you've been playing on Game Pass for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, all of your games are there, all of your saves are there, all of your accounts are there. It becomes much harder to give it up and go elsewhere. And they also condition the audience to get used to those games being included. And so the idea of paying $70 for a new game, for example, is intolerable. It's not something you want to even think about. It's like, no, I'm going to wait till it comes to Game Pass, which is already a sentiment we hear all of the time, where a game comes out and it's sort of mid and you go, I'll wait for Game Pass. Or PlayStation Plus, whatever it is. It's actually a problem within the broader industry that's really affected indies more than anything. A lot of people who would maybe in years past would have bought an indie game that was interesting for like $30-$40. Now they just decide to wait until it ends up on Game Pass. So I think like all of this starts to click together a little bit more when you view it through the eyes of Papa Satya. Maybe not through the eyes of Phil, but when you view it through the eyes of Satya Nadella, who needs to justify $80 billion a year investments into server infrastructure. And you're like, okay, so how do you do that? You push players as forcefully as you can towards cloud streaming. Okay, how do you do that? You make hardware way more expensive. And you make the copies of games more expensive by trying to push like $80 price tags on your AAA stuff. And then you also try to get everybody to subscribe to this annual subscription that includes the cloud streaming stuff that you can then push on gamers more and more and more as the years go by. Starts to make a little bit more sense. I don't think it's going to be successful though. And it goes back to what we've seen time and time again in the industry, which is that gamers are not like sports fans. They're not like movie buffs. They're not like makeup vlogger audiences. They're different. Okay. They are opinionated. They're smart. They're informed. And they're resourceful, dude. If they are fed up with what you're doing, yeah, they'll just go on your website. They'll search around Google like crazy, find out how to cancel it, and they'll cancel it. If they're pissed off with how you're doing things, they'll just boycott you and they'll flame you on social media and I'm sure do worse. Like, gamers don't take crap. They really don't. There's some maybe subsets that do, where you can see like Madden every year just gets worse and is even more terrible, but somehow they still sell millions of copies. Maybe those are the exceptions, but the moment that these companies start to think that they can treat the whole industry like the way they mistreat this smaller niche group, it ends badly. It doesn't go well. And I think that we've seen a pretty overwhelming response to all of this in the last few days, which I would hope would be humbling for Xbox. Because, I mean, maybe it is just a coincidence that the page to cancel your Xbox subscription for Game Pass, maybe it's a coincidence that that was crashing on the day they announced this news. Maybe it's a coincidence that the Google trend, I can pull this up, trends.google. I don't know if you guys have seen this. On Google Trends, you can go and cancel Game Pass. Let's just search that. Look at this. Let's do past 30 days. Do you see this massive spike? I wonder what happened right then. Why would people be Googling that so much? If we go like the past 12 months, bro, it's not even close. There's been some periods where, like, you know, you can see right around Christmas, people Googled it. For whatever reason, there just weren't a lot of games coming out, or maybe they signed up for Indiana Jones, played it, and then canceled it. So then in January, not many people did. But this is on another level. I mean, this is stratospheric. Yeah, it's also interesting the states that are more likely to cancel it. There's not a lot of data tracking in some of the northern states like Montana, for example. But if we look at other states like, you know, Oregon, people in Oregon are not okay with it. Louisiana, Texas, it's funny. Florida, but a lot of like northeastern states, I guess there's more money, and so they're less impacted, or maybe it's less likely. I don't know. It's very interesting though. Related queries: Game Pass price increase, Xbox price increase. I mean, these are not search terms you want associated with your brand. So I think that this should be humbling for them. But do I think they're going to change anything? No, because like I said, I'm getting the impression that this is coming from Satya. This is coming from the CEO on high. He's setting the standards. He needs to drive server engagement. He needs more revenue because I'm sure Game Pass is not as profitable as they would like it to be. And so they're just trying to find ways to do it. And so they're being much more aggressive than they would otherwise have been. But I'm sure that they've seen a significant drop in engagement. And granted, it's anecdotal. I've canceled mine. My brothers have canceled theirs, which I found kind of surprising. I didn't talk to them before, but last night we were playing games. I was like, yeah, did you guys hear about that? They're like, yeah, canceled mine. It's like, oh, wow. I didn't see that. So I think they just overstepped and now they're dealing with the consequences. But now you're also seeing a ton of articles being released discussing this broader topic, and it just keeps getting worse. For example, Xbox is removing Game Pass discounts on Call of Duty add-ons. So the thing I mentioned in the initial reaction video to all of this news was that it seemed to me like this was probably being done very suddenly and sharply in anticipation for Black Ops 7. The beta, of course, just dropped, which we're going to talk about a little bit later because apparently the numbers are really not very good in comparison to Battlefield. But I'm sure that they wanted to get this price hike set up so by the time Black Ops 7 comes out, they can make more money on the people signing up for the Ultimate tiers. And they're also removing discounts on the add-ons because they think that even without the discount, people will still buy them. And so why bother? What these effectively looked like was, as Charlie Intel posts here, Xbox has removed the 10% discount that Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members could get on add-on content for Call of Duty, including removing the discount on Call of Duty points and Black Cell as part of the changes to Game Pass this week. So as part of this whole thing, they removed the discounts. Used to be if you were a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, you'd save 10% off of all of this stuff, and they've removed that. Like they're trying desperately to find ways to trim the fat and to increase margins wherever they can, which is very, very interesting because I thought Game Pass was super profitable, but apparently they're desperately trying to increase margins, which sometimes could just be greed. They're just trying to boost numbers or something. Other times it's that they're desperately trying to save something after, you know, the accountants came in and found some holes. Jacob says, I'm starting to think the people in charge at Microsoft might be stupid. What I've said for years is that I think the problem with Satya being in charge of all of these gaming subdivisions through Phil is that Satya is like an old school Microsoft employee going back to I think he was there in the early 90s, maybe even the late 80s. And you can run a software development firm with an iron fist, and you can fire people, lay them off, hire contractors in India, and then fire those people, hire different contractors. You can do that type of thing, just burn and churn developers when they're making like security updates for Windows, when they're going through and making a crappy Windows 11 update that doesn't work. You can do that. When you're making video games, you can't do that. You're dealing with a different type of software engineer and developer. Artists and creative types like that are just different. You can't treat them the same way as like the engineers that are working at Windows. It just doesn't work. I was talking with one of the guys at IOI actually about all of this, because they of course work on their own engine in-house, and then they also have the game development side of it. And they were like, yeah, no, we have to manage teams very differently because the team of engineers that are working on the engine, they need to be talked to and worked with differently than the people working on level design, for example. They're just different types of human beings. And so it's just, you can't treat them the same way. And I think the problem is that Satya thinks that you can treat them the same way. And then he's shocked when the product quality plummets while he's treating them like cattle, basically. It just doesn't really work. Speed Racer, thank you for the 20. Very generous. Hey, Luke, I don't usually pop into live streams, but just want to say thanks for all the YouTube videos, man. Keep up the awesome work, man. Thank you, my friend. Very generous. My goodness. You humble me. Is it what I'm wearing? It's what I'm wearing, isn't it? I knew the green was a good shirt to wear today. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you, my friend. And very generous again with the 20. Very generous. I just sprayed coffee over. So we're seeing this news break though too. Microsoft is apparently about to launch free Xbox Cloud gaming with ads. Remember I said it's starting to look like they really want to boost engagement on xCloud, and they really want to increase utilization of their servers. There's a really interesting breakdown I saw. I think it was through Bloomberg, but basically they were trying to describe and break down for stupid people how the macroeconomics of servers works in the AI age. Because basically, like, you can spend $50,000 on one of these AI chips and these server farms, which cost hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. They're extremely expensive, but the economics of it work if you have max utilization. if you're at 100% capacity. The problem is you're not always at 100% capacity. You know, if you have all of these machines that are capable of running, and if they're all running for the certain amount of tokens or whatever that's being redeemed, it's profitable. That works. But the moment that they're sitting idle and not working, you're not profitable. So how you make it profitable is by increasing utilization and get people to use those server farms more. And that's something which it seems like Microsoft is desperately trying to do. They're trying to greatly increase the engagement within their infrastructure, which starts to line everything up with this stuff. You know, how do we get more people to use xCloud? Make it free. Well, we can't really make it free because then that's just us burning money. Okay. Well, what if we do ad supported versions? I don't even know how this works. Do they mean that like you'll play your game and then every 10 minutes the game will pause on the start menu and then it goes and plays a 2-minute ad and then you hit continue and you keep playing for 10 minutes? I think that that's probably what they're going to do. And can you imagine if this takes hold and becomes normalized? Like, oh God. Oh God. Exactly like mobile games. It's like Starfield. Oh, you want to fast travel to that planet? Oh, well, you have to watch a 30-second ad or you have to redeem this many credits. And if you want more credits, you can go and pay that through a paid mod that gives you infinite credits. You know, it just keeps getting more and more stupid. It just keeps getting more stupid. Where's the other one? I had another. Yeah, I mean, all of this kind of is wrapped up interestingly in an article that Paul Tassi put together for Forbes, which I think encapsulates just even the title puts it pretty well. Xbox's strategy is becoming actively repellent to players. Yeah, I mean, just look at how the narrative has changed. A few years back, Xbox was seen as the most pro-consumer of the big three between Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo. They were seen as one of the up-and-comers that probably were going to have some amazing games soon. At that point, they didn't really have a lot releasing. And to be fair, they have had some pretty solid games. Like Indiana Jones was awesome, I thought. They technically landed... wasn't Expedition 33 on Game Pass? I'm pretty sure it was. Like, they did get some really solid games on the platform. But at what cost? You know, at what cost? And I think at this point, the narrative has completely shifted. And now when you hear Xbox, you think of a company that is somehow raising prices on hardware nobody was buying to begin with. They are raising prices on their one subscription service to the point where people are canceling it. And it's becoming like a gamer purity test to see who canceled it. Like, before I take your opinion seriously, did you cancel your account? That's what's happening. And it's starting to feel more and more corporate, more and more soulless. All of these countless layoffs, it's all becoming really, really distasteful. As he writes, this week, Microsoft raised prices on the Xbox Game Pass to a genuinely shocking degree, following similarly large hikes on all of its current generational hardware. While it's tough times in the economy to be sure, that's also true on the consumer side, and what Xbox is doing here is now completely incomprehensible. While other competitors like Sony finally did give in and raise hardware prices due to tariff issues imposed by the Trump administration, Xbox has now done so twice, and the end result being an Xbox Series X that costs $600, $100 more than it launched at 5 years ago, and an $800 Xbox Series X at 2 terabytes, as a 2 terabyte version at $800 again. The direct competitor to the more powerful PS5 Pro, which now costs $50 less. Xbox has no real space to do this, given that it has already been losing the console sales war badly this generation, as it did with the last one. Microsoft no longer reports exact hardware sales numbers, but if this generation started out around 2-to-1 ratio against Sony as estimated, persistent quarterly declines have now made that far more lopsided. And that's something we've seen even with player engagement and other things like physical sales in the UK, which are reported on. Same with like Japan. The Xbox Game Pass price hike feels diametrically opposed to a constant refrain from Microsoft that despite seemingly huge costs and foregone game sales, Game Pass is profitable. That's what they say, and they've said this numerous times. Xbox's president says Game Pass is profitable and good for creators, despite alleged division over the subscription model. The service apparently made $5 billion over the last fiscal year. It does take in a ton of money, but again, at what cost? And it's also the thing with all of this stuff is it matters so much with the accounting. You know, are they tracking all microtransactions acquired through Game Pass versions of Call of Duty as Game Pass revenue, or is that dropped in another bucket? Because that revenue would exist whether they played it through Game Pass or not, in my opinion. So I think like there's so many ways of playing you know, the cup game to move the money around and make it look one way or another, but they don't share the full numbers and details. So I take it with a grain of salt. If that's true, then either this is a huge greedy grab with loyal consumers trying to squeeze them to an unprecedented degree to further margins, or Xbox Game Pass is not nearly as profitable as they're letting on, and they need to do this, especially since it's clear they are rapidly approaching a ceiling where over time subscription numbers are going to flatline once the market for live services like this are tapped. If that's the case, it would be more desperate than greedy, and neither option is good. I think that that's an important point. Either they are just being extremely greedy and it is profitable, it is sustainable, which is what they publicly have said, or they are not sustainable, it is not as profitable as it needs to be, and so they're desperately trying to increase margins. Because again, what's shocking is not that they raised prices. What's shocking is that they did so strongly and so suddenly. If they had done a $1.50 increase here and there over the next, like, once every 3 months, they raise it by $1, I think, you know, it would have boiled the frog slowly enough that people would have not thrown a fit over it, even though they would wake up next December, let's just say, with a significantly more expensive lineup of subscription offerings. But I think people would have gotten used to it, and it just would have been like, well, yeah, inflation. But because they did it so suddenly and so sharply, it makes it feel like a bit of a panic move. Or sort of like a knee-jerk reaction to it. The end result here seems like a company that is actively trying to repel players, be they existing or new ones. Why would you ever buy a more expensive Xbox, less powerful Xbox, over a rival from PlayStation? Why would you agree to a $360 a year subscription service that jumped 50% in an instant with no coherent justification for that? Well, Paul, to be fair, did you hear, Paul? They are bringing 15-year-old Assassin's Creed games. Checkmate. You didn't think about that, did you? That explains it. And this is not even addressing another big issue over the course of the past year, which is Xbox doling out loads of its games to PlayStation, PC, and occasionally the Switch, meaning having an Xbox console or staying in the ecosystem feels entirely unnecessary. I do not think it is impossible for Microsoft to be a big gaming leader by leaning almost exclusively into Game Pass, but that would require 1, enough high-quality first-party games each year to be worth it, 2, the ability to partner with bigger third-party games that also launch on the service, and 3, a desire to keep most of this locked into Game Pass, not spread through 4 different platforms, and lastly 4, a non-absurd price, as even if it did all that, $30 a month is one of the most expensive media subscriptions in the market. Right now, it has none of those things going for it, and unless something changes, this grand experiment does not seem like it will have long-term legs moving forward, and I am starting to legitimately worry about the Xbox's brand continued existence as a whole, given the decisions that Microsoft has been making. Especially because we know Satya is not afraid of just shutting something down if it doesn't make sense. He'll just shut it down. He's no emotional attachment to Xbox at all. The one saving grace is that they are $70 billion in the hole after even just one acquisition. So they've spent a lot of money and they need to justify that. But it could be that debt is coming due in a colloquial sense. You know, they're looking for ways to make that make sense. But I do think that this is a key component and consideration. The moment something becomes uncool in the gaming space or gross or distasteful, gamers shut down. If we find Ubisoft cringy or their game design cringy, you will hear about it 15 ways to sundown all day, every day. You say a word about Assassin's Creed, you'll get 15 people in chat immediately. Yeah, it sucks. Like instantly, right? The moment that you hear something about loot boxes, everybody floods in and is like, yeah, those things suck ass. And now Xbox is becoming the punching bag. And it's crazy because just a few years ago, they were viewed as like the up and coming underdog that probably, you know, was, even though they were not releasing a ton of games at the time and the quality was kind of up in the air, they were on their way and they had some amazing studios and they had a fantastic price point. But now, I don't know, man. It's not looking great. Because I mean, just I would love to know how many subscriptions they lost when this news went out. Because I think the number was probably pretty steep. And I think enough of those people basically made a choice. Like when I canceled that subscription, I made a choice that like for $30 a month, it's no longer that bang for the buck value. So for me, if I really want to play, God forbid, Starfield or something, I'll just buy the copy of the game myself. Or if I really think this new game coming to Game Pass day one is interesting and is something I want to try and I don't want to pay $70, you just sign up for a month and then cancel the app immediately. Like, problem solved. Which is why I wouldn't be surprised if they start trying to limit it to like, 3-month signups. Like you can only buy, 3-month bundles or something. So they get you locked in, something like that. But it's just crazy because again, every single time they get the chance to like win people over, they have a couple of good months, they just shoot themselves in the foot with a bazooka. It really is incredible. They had Obsidian, I always want to say Obsidian for some reason, Oblivion remastered earlier this year. One of the most successful games of the year. Why not just ride that into the sunset? You had a great launch for Game Pass. And then immediately they're like, okay, yeah, well, we're going to raise console prices. They're about to launch Call of Duty. Okay, we could focus on that. Let that be the talk of the town. But no, instead, we're going to just nuke all of our goodwill with the community and do this instead. It's just ridiculous. It really, really is. It's shocking. It's shocking. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens over the next couple of months. But as of right now, I just, man. They really are speedrunning, tearing this apart. Lo-Fi, thank you for the 5. Phil Spencer has had a decade plus to prove he is far worse than Don Mattrick ever could dream of being. I mean, that maybe that's an interesting topic in and of itself, like Phil Spencer versus Don Mattrick, the legacy, and we break that down. Personally, I mean, Don Mattrick really did unironically speedrun running Xbox into the ground. And some of the stuff he did, like, as much as we meme about this, Phil Spencer's strategy seems to be take Microsoft's money, buy big studios, get a massive portfolio, put those in a library and sell it as a monthly subscription. Okay, not a crazy idea at all. The current offense that he is being accused of is raising the prices to egregious levels, which I think he is doing. Don Mattrick wanted to take one of the world's biggest and most successful gaming consoles and turn it into a cable box. So in my opinion, Don Mattrick is worse because like he was just straight up big dumb, like to a comical degree, which they did. Yes. So I personally think it's going to be hard to top Don Mattrick because he did some insane stuff, but yeah, I do think it's an interesting conversation. Certainly. It's very interesting. I think part of what's frustrating about this more than anything is that it's been a roller coaster. Don Mattrick, the moment he took over, it was just downhill. With Phil, it seemed like, oh, they're buying studios. Oh, they're empowering studios to make the games they really want to do. He's going to support them. And this is a great value, all that. So we were on the up and up. And then he just drove it straight into the ground with the crazy pricing and all of this stuff and layoffs and all that. So I think that's a big component of it. Drunken Monkey, thank you for the 20 Australian dollary dues. Still early game, but my headcanon for Yote is for the quest of revenge. She does some hectic stuff and slowly turns into a monster. Like Jin's set of morals they have to betray to get their revenge. Keep up the good work. Thank you, my friend. And yeah, I think... I mean, no spoilers. I won't get into spoilers, obviously. But with Ghost of Yote, I think it's really, really good. my point in my video, my I tried video that I just posted this morning on the main channel, is that I just think the core component of Ghost of Tsushima that I loved so much was that conflict that was explicitly stated and explored. It was like the big crowning moment at the end of the game, even. Again, no spoilers, but like that last fight, that's what it's all about. And it was that conflict of fighting honorably or dishonorably, of holding to tradition or winning at all costs, you know, that type of thing. And I thought that was such an interesting topic to explore. And Ghost of Yotei is great. It just doesn't have that nuance. So it's not necessarily a diss on Ghost of Yotei. It's more just a point of excessive praise for Tsushima. But they're both really, really good. Really, really good. Okay. Xbox Game Pass with ads, more like Xbox Game Pass with AIDS, says Mr. NPC character. It's not funny. We don't joke about ads. I mean AIDS. We don't joke about that. Right? Stop. Stop it. When does KCD 2 DLC come out? Oh, the next whatever they're doing? I had no idea. No idea. I wish I knew. More like Xbox Game Ass. Boom. JRP comment of the day. Boom. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry to keep rambling about the Xbox stuff. It's just continued to be baffling to me. Again, TLDR, TLDW, I guess, if you happen to watch these videos in reverse somehow. I think Microsoft is pushing Xbox into doing all of this stuff because I think Microsoft needs to boost their engagement and utilization on the servers that they're investing tens upon tens upon tens of billions of dollars into. And so Game Pass, of course, with recurrent revenue is a huge component of that, but also getting xCloud built out and utilized by as many people as possible is a huge component of this vision, which is what this is intended to do with the free version serviced through ads, and then also them adding cloud streaming to every tier of Game Pass. I think that that's a huge component of it as well. They're trying to get it normalized, get people committed to the ecosystem, and I think as far as building an ecosystem is concerned, Microsoft may be the worst in the world. It really is incredible. Throughout their entire corporate history, they have managed every opportunity to blow their opportunity at building an ecosystem. Going back to early Windows, and how they responded to like Apple starting to get some momentum going, how they handled the Zune. Remember the Zune? No, exactly. How they handled their own Windows Phone. I mean, they really, no matter where you look, they are terrible at building ecosystems and getting people locked in. And this is just another example of it. It's another example of it. So, you know, the old saying is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. For Microsoft, it seems like you miss 100% of the shots you take desperately and forcefully. It's crazy. It really is crazy. Okay. Anyway, we'll stop there. Phantom, thank you for the 20. I told my dad about this Xbox thing and he's canceling his subscription. He has never taken it offline in 20 years he's had it. Xbox has been our way of playing together until he got a PC a couple of months ago. Well, boom. I think that Xbox's goal has been to get people to kind of shrug off the idea of owning a physical piece of hardware like a console, and therefore they sign up for Game Pass and play through the cloud. But I think what's instead going to happen is that they're just going to pushing everybody to PC, which to a certain extent you can be like, oh, well, then they still win because they own Windows. Yes. Yeah. But I don't think that they're buying content through Game Pass or Xbox's store when they build that PC. I think they build the PC and go to Steam, you know? So yeah, I think it's a huge strategic blunder on their part. And whether it's Phil's fault or it's Satya's fault or a combination of the two, who knows, maybe it's Sarah's fault. Because like I said for years, I think that Sarah is being set up to basically take over. I think Phil probably retires at the end of this generation, and Sarah is going to be named the new head of Xbox. Locking it in. She technically is. I think she's the president of Xbox right now, but I think she'll take over for Phil. That's my guess. So, yeah. Yeah, thank you for the super chat. Very, very nice. Also, Rebinox, thank you for the sub over on Twitch. 3 months. Booyah. That gets 3 booms. Boom, boom, boom. Shout out Rebinox. I can read. Love your content. Love you, my friend. Thank you for watching and hanging out with me. Bacon Maestro 1. Awesome name. Thank you for the sub with Prime, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. I don't know about Sarah Bond. I have no idea on her decision-making abilities. I know that she is a capable corporate shark. She's very good at climbing corporate ladders, demonstrably so. You don't get to her position out of nowhere. And she was basically put in charge of getting the Activision Blizzard acquisition across the table. That was kind of her baby, and she did that. So she is very capable. She is very capable. As for whether she has the best interest of gamers at heart, I have no idea. I've never seen any indication that she is a gamer herself. I've never heard her talk about that. Whereas Phil Spencer, he's chronically online. It's very funny. But yeah, I genuinely, not saying it'll be bad or good, I genuinely do not know what Sarah Bond would be like as the head of Xbox. But I have a feeling she would just do the bidding of Satya, which is why she would get the job. So, yeah, that's my perspective. It's my perspective on the topic, frankly. Okay. Should we do this? Okay, let's do this. Unless your name is Guillemot. Oh, Ubisoft. Oh, Ubisoft. They really know how to just keep me entertained. I mean, honestly, I've told you guys, the industry goes in waves, right? Some waves go out, some waves come in. Some years, or 1 year, Ubisoft might be the talk of the town and they can do no right. The next year, maybe the punching bag is Xbox. Next year, maybe the punching bag is EA. Next year, maybe it's Warner Brothers because they released Suicide Squad 2. You never know. But it changes. You got to remember that. Because right now, at least earlier, well, I'd say late last year, early this year, Ubisoft was the centerpiece of all of the gamer rage. Now I feel like it's sort of shifting towards Xbox as a publisher and company. And I have a feeling like PlayStation's about to come out of a serious rut. I think that they'll have a couple of misses probably, with whether it's Marathon or Fair Game $, if that still exists. But I think once they get to the point where they're releasing the God of War project that's rumored and Wolverine, and they get back kind of on the roll, I think that PlayStation will start to recover a lot. And I've said, I think Ubisoft has the potential to recover a lot as well, because they are sitting on a lot of massive games that should, in theory, perform well, like a brand new Far Cry, which always does well, Splinter Cell stuff. They've got Prince of Persia stuff, a brand new dark, gritty, linear Assassin's Creed game. That sounds crazy. A Black Flag remake. They should, in theory, have a lot of stuff to come out swinging and have a crazy 2026. Now, never doubt their ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, but it is at least possible that they do a decent job. We will see, though. Either way, it's going to be entertaining. I can't wait. Either we'll have awesome games to play, or we'll have funny stuff to make fun of. And I can't wait for it, frankly. I can't wait. I'm so excited. So excited. Speaking of being excited, should we talk about this? New segment for you. That one's for free. What is the one place we all go to looking for profound gaming commentary that challenges our opinions, our presuppositions, and informs us of new movements within the zeitgeist of the industry? Of course, how dare you say porn? Jesus. Okay, whoever said Luke Stevens live gets it right. Yeah, there you go. You did a good job. You win. Congratulations. Yes. DSP, how dare you? No, obviously, frankly, I'm shocked that this is even a debate, frankly. Obviously, IGN. They put out a video and an article yesterday that is written by Simon Cardy. And if you don't know Simon actually does do really good work over at IGN. Does all sorts of, like, as you can see, previews on 007 stuff. He's done a bunch of the reviews, Blood of the Dawn Walker, the Lego Batman game. One of my most anticipated, dude. I think that looks awesome. He's done a lot of good work, and he has this video and article that he wrote that seems interesting. I've not watched it or checked it out yet, so I genuinely don't know what the argument is, but it's titled, "I'm getting bored of every PlayStation game telling the same story. Is it about time PS5 exclusives got some new ideas?" Color me intrigued. Because I've heard some people say, yeah, PlayStation games, they're all third-person adventure games. Like, okay. I mean, that's pretty wide as far as, like, genres go. But okay. I mean, is that bad? You know, I'm not sure what the critique is. Others will say they're just, every game's trying to be, like, tell an emotional story. I don't really see how that's a problem, but okay. So I'm just thoroughly intrigued by this because I've heard this sentiment echoed, but I've never seen somebody put together like a video trying to argue the point. So we're going to see it. As far as I understand it, this video is basically just him reading out the article with some visual aids to prove the points. So, or at least to argue the points. So we're going to check it out together today. Come with me on this journey, everyone. Let's see if they can convince us that PlayStation games are all telling the same story.
I'm a huge fan of PlayStation's first-party offerings. They've come to embody the sort of cinematic adventures I've always looked for when sitting down with a controller in my hand, feeling like genuine blockbuster events meant to be savoured. But where in the past this brand of glossy storytelling felt like new ground being trodden, I can't help but feel that recently it's become the well-worn road. It's not just that all of PlayStation's major releases adhere to the now trademark third-person cinematic stylings. It's that the stable of developers has become seemingly obsessed with stories that explore the exact same themes, grief and revenge. And
Okay. Premise is, it's not just the styling of cinematic third-person action adventure thriller, but it's also the themes. Okay. Whenever we get into the topic of themes, though, with narratives, I feel like it can often be easy to just end up describing everything. We like, this is another game or another story about a group of people who cared about someone, and that someone passed away, and now they seek to carry on their message and maybe even enact revenge against those they deem responsible. And you're like, okay, are we talking about The Last of Us? Are we talking about Ghost of Yotei? Are we talking about the Bible? Like, all of this kind of works. Yeah, Expedition 33. Like, you can kind of bend these archetypes, John Wick, into any sort of story you want, because ultimately there's a few key human emotions and they typically tie stories together. I don't think it's necessarily an issue. I would love to see an example. I'm guessing he's going to bring up some examples of wackier, crazier stuff that's a little bit more interesting that he'd like to see spruced or used to spruce it up, but let's see. Moana.
I'm starting to get a little tired of it. As a rule, these games are all impeccably well made, but I'm starting to miss that era when PlayStation's range felt wider and things were a little bit more fun.
I think it was was in an interview with, I think it was with Neil Druckmann. I want to say it was with Neil, where he was asked about like their philosophy at Naughty Dog in making games. And they were asked like, do you try to make games fun? And oh, here, I think this is it. We don't use the word fun. The Last of Us 2 is not a joyride. And I think that it is like true that a lot of games, and a lot of really profound games even, same with movies and stuff, are not fun. They're not enjoyable in the traditional use of the word, you know? Like, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad at the same time. Is what's a really good movie? What's like a really, really good movie? Schindler's List is not a fun movie. It's not a movie you're gonna watch and feel like good after. You're gonna feel horrible and it's kind of miserable. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's telling an important story and you can learn from the story and reflect, and it's worth existing even if it's not enjoyable in the traditional sense. Now, it's a separate issue if you're like, I only like fun games or games that make me happy or, you know, lighten me up. That's fine. But that might not be what the creators were trying to do, right? Like it could be that Ghost of Yotei, the writers were not trying to make something fun, maybe satisfying, engaging, captivating, something like that, but maybe not fun in that like silly or lighthearted way. But anyway, continue. We'll let him keep talking.
The realization that so many PlayStation games have explored the same grim story themes struck me when playing through Sucker Punch's new Ghost of Yotei. While I thoroughly enjoyed it and admire its consistently exciting approach to combat and genuine sense of discovery it creates for exploration, I couldn't help but feel I'd been told its story before. As Atsu, you're tasked with avenging the death of your parents on a blood-soaked...
Did he say revenging?
...before. As Atsu, you're tasked with avenging the death...
I think it's with avenging, but with his accent, it sounded like with revenging. I think that's what it was. Anyway, sorry. I was like, revenging? It's like is that a word? Is that a British word? He said avenging. It sounded weird. Sorry, I'm being a prick. Sorry.
Of your parents on a blood-soaked journey across 17th century Japan as you hunt down each of the Yotei 6. Not only is this tale unfortunately close to the plot of Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I also played to completion earlier this year, but it's the same combination of fiery revenge arc crossed with meditations on what it is to grieve that has become something of a hallmark for PlayStation Studios in recent years.
I'm sorry it came to this, little wolf.
2019's The Last of Us Part 2 is an obvious trailblazer, with Ellie's dark descent into a rage-filled embodiment of revenge coming as a result of the death of her father figure Joel.
I mean, I think one of the things that's happened just in media for the last like 10 years also, maybe even longer than that, is this like misery porn that unfortunately is very, very common. But it's like, how do we make the most miserable thing that is just Oscar bait? Like, it's literally just a story that's miserable and horrible in every way imaginable, and it's basically intended to bait Oscars or awards because journalists and critics tend to love miserable stories like that because they're profound. Because it's like they say, it's not necessarily a good story, it's an important story. The Last of Us 2 isn't like a fun story or point of adventure, but it's an important one. So if you don't like it, you're a bad person. That's the key, frankly. That's the key. And I think that definitely is true of a lot of games where they can lean into the depressing plot lines too much. It's why variability, I think, is important. You got to have moments of serious, gritty narrative and then moments of levity to lighten it up. It's like in God of War, where you can have a really intense moment and then Brock and Sindri will say something that makes you kind of chuckle and is just kind of silly, or something really intense happens and then you see Odin and he's kind of like hamming it up and being very charismatic and he lightens the tension even though the stakes are still there. that's what you need to like carry a story through and keep something that is dark and gritty still engaging. It was one of the frustrations I had with The Last of Us Part 2, which is just frankly that by the end of that game you're exhausted. Like it is one of the most emotionally exhausting pieces of media I think that's ever been created. By the time it's done, you are jubilant, not because the game was necessarily like terrible, but because like it's just so emotionally taxing. For just the moment you think you could have a happy ending, something more horrible happened. Like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Anyway, continue.
That, of course, was the sequel to the 2013 original that explored how Joel struggled to cope with the death of his own daughter.
Spoilers.
At the time, The Last of Us was seen as fueling a wave of sad dad games, including
dad.
2018's God of War. But in hindsight, these were just the building blocks for PlayStation's preoccupation with grief.
Find your way home.
Preoccupation with grief. It's interesting. Does PlayStation have a preoccupation with grief? I mean, I'd say they've experimented with other stuff. Narratively, Concord, I would say, was quite different. Maybe revenge. Like, I don't think Kratos is seeking revenge in this. I guess it's a duology, not a trilogy. I think the whole point of Kratos. No spoilers for Ragnarok, but Kratos' whole character arc is being better. You know. Astrobot, yeah, I mean Astrobot's the obvious example, but I mean I think to a certain extent this stuff is also like players are connecting obviously with the stories of The Last of Us, with the stories of like God of War Ragnarok. They're connecting with these plot lines in Ghost of Tsushima, and I think he references Death Stranding later, because I saw some clips he's going to show. So, you know, players are connecting with those stories and worlds. I don't think that necessarily means that PlayStation has the preoccupation. I think it's more maybe the audience is connecting with those stories. But there's also other examples you can point to where I don't think they are totally focused on grief or misery, because they've also put out things like Spider-Man, which Spider-Man has topics, and there are moments in Spider-Man for the PS4 that are sad. No spoilers again, but there's a couple moments, but I wouldn't say that game is hyper fixated on misery or grief or anything. Same with like Ratchet and Clank or Astrobot, and you know, for every example there's a counter example. But okay, continuing.
You are free.
2022's God of War Ragnarok is a story fueled by the loss of mothers and sons and the anger that comes with them. Insomniac's Spider-Man series follows both Peter Parker and Miles Morales as they attempt to overcome supervillain threats, as well as wrestle with their demons stemming from dead parental figures.
She never thought about herself, even when she was struggling to breathe.
2020's Returnal is a looping sci-fi nightmare born out of the protagonist Celine's familial grief-related trauma. And then there's 2025's other big PlayStation exclusive, Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, which may not technically be a first-party game, but certainly is a verifiable feast of maternal and paternal anguish. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of all the games listed above, each singular in its depictions of characters and each offering wildly different gameplay experiences. But when viewed as a whole, it's easy to hear that their stories are all being sung from the same hymn sheet. Familial grief is at the centre of all of these stories, and while I certainly feel that mature themes have a place in games, it is all starting to feel like I'm getting hit around the head with the same ideas at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that familial grief being a consistent trend, but I think also perhaps there's a component of this where it's like, it's just people being sad and then trying to deal with that sadness is a story that, or a jumping off point for a story that you can do a lot with. Whereas like, what's the alternative? Do you have like in Returnal, it's like, nope, she comes from a really solid family background. She is very mentally well and mentally healthy, and she has no sadness, and she's just really fulfilled and is happy. Like when everything is good, there's nowhere to go. You know, there's no character arc, there's no conflict, there's nothing you can do. I do think I'm interested in hearing new new topics or new the points of exploration, new things that they could do. And I think they will do that. For example, we've heard rumors and rumblings, and even Neil has talked about what they're going to do for the next Naughty Dog game and where they're going. And apparently they're going to shake it up with something a lot more lighthearted and interesting for Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. And so they're just going to, instead of discussing all this stuff, they're going to discuss like religion and stuff. So it's going to be a topic of like religious conflict, which I bet will be received much better. I can't imagine that going in any sort of controversial way. Buckle up, everybody. That one's going to be fun. Oh, baby. Yeah, buckle up for that. That's going to be... Oh. Oh.
The cycle of violence is in very real danger of becoming a loop of diminishing returns.
You gutted my father.
He defied Lord Saito.
Then you tried to burn me alive.
Spoilers. I think my bigger frustration is not with the themes, it's with the minutia, frankly. Like, the reason why the revenge plotline is a trope is because it works. It's a trope, and it's something we've seen before because it works. It works. On the flip side, I think what's more important is the execution of the trope or of the idea. And so I think that it's important to evaluate that as well, not just focus on the broad strokes, but also on the small ones. And for me, like, I think a lot of characters that have come out in some of these stories are so dry that it becomes really hard to find them interesting, or they're just downright cringy, which is a problem I ran into with like Spider-Man 2, where I felt like the writing in Spider-Man 2 took a nosedive after the first game. And even after Miles Morales, I thought Miles Morales was like already, it wasn't as good as the original Spider-Man game on PS4, but I was like, well, it's a spin-off game, so it's probably not the A-team. But then Spider-Man 2, I thought was a cringe fest a lot of the time, and it was really, really bizarre. But again, that's a separate issue.
Of course, it's true that not every PS5 game follows this pattern. Astrobot isn't an exploration of generational trauma in deep space, but you catch my drift. I think that's incidentally what I enjoyed so much about Team Asobi's Ode to PlayStation of old, with its joy and colour standing out from the otherwise morose crowd.
And interestingly, when Astrobot came out, a lot of people were complaining, this is what we get. We've been waiting for the next God of War and the next Naughty Dog game, and this is what we get. And so, while there are certainly people like Simon who are looking for something more lighthearted and different, there's also a lot of people who are looking for, something darker and grittier and more intense. And so, the market's big, the tent is large, so there's plenty of room for everybody to fit underneath it. But I've definitely heard this sentiment echoed.
It felt like a rarity, but it never used to be this way. The PS3 gave us Naughty Dog's Uncharted era, which, although it eventually ventured into more melancholic territory in A Thief's End, firmly planted its flag in themes of adventure with a tone ripped from the pages of Pulp Fiction.
But here's an honest question. And I genuinely don't know, so please in chat, answer me. Genuine question. If Uncharted 2, for example, if Uncharted 2 launched today, and we'll just say that, modern production standards, so, it's Naughty Dog levels of production quality in 2025, would it be received the same way narratively, I'm talking, as it was back when it launched in whatever that was, 2010, maybe, I think. Because I think that like the Amy Hennig era of Uncharted was a product of its time. Like it was campy. It was kind of, there were moments which were kind of silly. I mean, obviously the first game has like literal Nazi zombies, which are like a stereotypical thing from the late 2000s, but I think that it was a product of its time. And as in the same way, in this time, or at least the last handful of years, a lot of games on the big AAA scale are launching with much grittier narratives, much darker, much more serious. And I think part of that is because the industry has matured. And a lot of people who grew up playing games like Uncharted have ended up in adulthood, and we're looking for something with a little more meat on the bone. I think there is a place for games that are a little more lighthearted. Absolutely. And I think, the success of some of these other games certainly demonstrates it. But I think that the industry has matured a lot as well, and they like stories that challenge them narratively. It's why something like Expedition 33, again, no spoilers, connected with a lot of people, because it's intense, and there's a lot of moments in there which are kind of tough to get through emotionally, let's just say. Whereas something like Uncharted 2, the stakes are generally lower, and you kind of know that everything's going to end up okay. It's like a standard blockbuster movie where all the characters are going to make it out okay. There's not going to be any consequence in the story. Like, the bad guy's going to lose after he gets done with his monologue. It's campy. Whereas that's something that a lot of gamers have seen and heard before, and so they're looking for something a little bit more intense, a little more intense. A lot of you guys are saying, no, I don't think so. No, it wouldn't. Product of its time, sadly. No, because it would be considered misogynistic, and Nathan Drake would be swapped out with Nina Drake. How dare you, JD? Unironically, I think the next Uncharted game probably does have his daughter. What is his daughter's name? Not Ellie. What is Nathan's daughter's name? Well, Elena's his wife. What is her? Cassie. Thank you. You guys are better than Google. That's great. So anyway, continuing on. I think that like Uncharted 2 was a product of its time, but I think if it launched today, it would be found probably narratively lacking.
I've always had a soft spot for Insomniac's Resistance and its World War II/sci-fi warfare mashup, as well as Little Big Planet, which, all the way at the other end of the tonal spectrum, celebrated creativity and community.
Welcome to...
Oh, another example of this, though, is like It Takes Two or Split Fiction. Games that can explore more intense narratives and topics, but still retain a lighter tone. And it's that contrast that I really love about those games, because they can explore something as intense as divorce, which is what It Takes Two explores, but in a silly way with like their book of love. It's like honestly a really good time, but it explores a very serious and relatable topic for a lot of people. And I love those games. Anyway.
Bunkum chummy chum chum.
Collaboration.
Where the sky is strewn with circling clouds of imagination.
Yes, these games all contain varying levels of character nuances, but were all fundamentally about different things. Treasure hunting, alien invasions, and personal expression. They weren't all trying to serve the same story, and I can't help but feel that if a new Jak and Daxter game were to come out today, it would be about an Otzel's thirst for revenge against the killers of his blonde-haired friend.
That would be really funny. Like, imagine a Jak and Daxter game, but it's like super gory and intense. The whole thing is an allegory for the war in Ukraine, and it's like, bro, what are we doing? Like, this is way too intense. Yeah, but I think that we can point to other examples of games that have launched, like Ratchet and Clank, which are not that serious. Like, they're much more lighthearted, frankly, So I think for every example, there's counterexamples, but perhaps the point is that some of the biggest studios are now focusing on darker, grittier, more mature content, whereas they used to focus on more lighthearted stuff. But I think that's just because the majority of the market and most of the money is sitting on the more mature content, and that's where they're putting their resources. And the same way, like Naughty Dog, yeah, they could go back and do a Crash Bandicoot sequel. They could. Do I think that's the best use of their talents? Personally, not. I don't think that would probably go over too well, even if they were to do that. Like, I don't think it would even sell remarkably well. Like, can you imagine if that's what they've been working on all these years? I don't think it would go over too well.
Hang on, Dax. It's gonna be close.
I hope that future PlayStation exclusives can look to this more varied, interesting past for inspiration, even when choosing to tackle more serious subject matters. Team Ico's PS2 classic Shadow of the Colossus took on a mournful tone, but found something truly unique and poignant within it, at a time when such ideas were far less common in games. It stands as a unique masterpiece to this day, telling its tale through vagaries and minimal cutscenes, a far cry from the trademark cinematic style we now expect of PlayStation games. What we didn't have back in the mid-2000s were 5 more PS2 releases that took its exact contemplations on love and loss and told the same story in a different wrapping. Every time you played something new from Sony Studios on the now 25-year-old console, it felt like a brand new experiment with a different story to tell, not just a variation on a theme. That brings me back to Ghost of Yotai.
I mean, I think part of the benefit of those older generations, though, was that it was relatively cheap to experiment and try different things through new IP. Nowadays, for like Sucker Punch or Naughty Dog or Santa Monica or whoever, for them to spend 4 years, 5 years building a new IP is a huge risk. I mean, it's not something everybody's going to get the opportunity to do. And so as a result, like the money getting thrown at that needs to be pretty locked in. You have to be pretty confident in the team before you let them try something fresh and different. I mean, it's not something that's taken lightly because these projects are so huge and so expensive. And you could say maybe that's part of the innovation, is coming up with ideas that are less expensive, but it's also the opportunity cost. If you know that like Sucker Punch or maybe, you know, Naughty Dog is a better example. Naughty Dog could pump out a Crash Bandicoot game in 2 years and it's just, or something, you know, a spiritual successor. Yeah, they could do that probably pretty cheaply, but what is the opportunity cost of doing that when they could have spent that time working on The Last of Us Part 3, which will blow up and sell 20 million copies? I mean, it's much more valuable to PlayStation to utilize their talents doing something else, even if they could pump out something cheaper that wouldn't perform as well, you know? Yeah, true. Better make it a live service. Exactly.
A game that is superior to its predecessor in almost every aspect, barring its central story.
My name is Atsu.
While I connect to Atsu more than I ever did Jin Sakai, she's a much warmer presence to spend a few dozen hours with. Ghost of Tsushima's narrative explores different, fresher ground. The story balances the personal struggles of Jin against the backdrop of an invasion of a nation, with themes of honor, betrayal, and belonging striking a chord and making it stand out when it arrived hot on the heels of The Last of Us Part 2 in 2020, before grief seemingly took hold of every Sony storyteller. Perhaps PlayStation's interest in grief is a reflection of the state of the world, though. When viewed through the lens of when PS5 exclusives like Ghost of Yotai and Death Stranding were being written, that melancholy is somewhat understandable. The COVID pandemic inarguably took hold of our planet in the years 2020 and 2021, and as such, themes surrounding unexpected loss and mass trauma would no doubt have been at the forefront of many minds. It will therefore be intriguing to see if this pattern will continue much further then, now that the world has somewhat settled back into what it looked like beforehand. Will the stories being told in projects that began production post-2022 mirror a different state of the planet, or continue to look inside ourselves at our darkest moments?
It's true. At this point, we need a lot more games exploring student loan debt, DoorDash deliveries being more expensive, Starbucks drinks having writing on them for some incomprehensible reason. We need topical, relatable stuff. Yeah, let's do a Saints Row reboot. Let's do it.
These are, of course, all valid tales to tell, and I'm a huge proponent of art being reflections of those creating it.
Yeah.
But I can't help but...
All jokes aside, I do think he's right. A lot of the games we're playing right now in the last couple of years were made predominantly during like the dark times. And so I do think those themes and ideas and how a lot of people were feeling is reflected within the games that came out of that era. Just like the games made in the late 2000s were reflective of that era, and the games made in the 2010s were reflective of that era. And so, you know, things will evolve and change. I think if anything, I'm hoping that games become a little bit more irreverent and crazy and wacky this coming generation. More likely, I think that they probably are going to just utilize a lot of like AI tools, and I think that the games I think the next generation of consoles and open world games, for example, and RPGs and everything, it's going to be just about scale and volume. I think it's all going to be just like, there's 1,000 NPCs in the cities and in the city, and they all have their own names and schedules and routines and dialogue and stuff. And it's all going to be built around large language models. And there's probably going to be modes where you can like turn on your microphone and have conversations with the NPCs in the world. I think that like that type of gimmick, that type of thing is going to be huge in the next generation. Locking it in now, locking it in. And if you're like, Luke, you sound crazy, dude, I predicted Suicide Squad back in like 2017, bro. 2018. I forget when I made that critique, but yeah. My most successful video of all time, the Batman Arkham series critique. I kind of forgot about it, but I did, in fact, predict the Suicide Squad thing in there. I thought it was going to be cool. I was like, it would be really cool. I think they should make a Suicide Squad game and they should do this and this. And I mean, in my opinion, they messed it up, but.
For a little more variety going forward.
I will find every last member of the Yote Six. And I will bring you peace.
There's a reason to be hopeful and skeptical, considering what Sony has coming up next. Insomniac's Wolverine looks to be delivering on all of the gore and decapitation you'd hope to see, but will that mature rating be reflected in its themes?
Death's always waiting.
I did see one guy reply to that sequence where he shoves the blades up the dude's face, and he's like, it's hard for me to get really into this when I know that that guy's gonna hop back up in a second with 60% health left. It's like, I kind of see what you mean. Yeah. Because let's be real. Yeah, probably. He's probably going to hop back up and be fine. It's why I think they're doing the enemies that are like android hybrid, whatever, cyborgs, because then you can slash at them and they don't immediately die, whereas a normal person would get cut in half. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a thing, but I'm sure any of these things you're thinking of now, like, oh, I wonder how they're going to deal with Wolverine not being able to die like that. Like that I'm sure was the first thing they thought about 5 years ago. Okay, so they're way ahead of you. It'll be okay.
Logan is certainly a character consumed by lust for revenge. Will that see us
Lust.
taken down a
Shout out
familiar
Lust.
path of burying past demons through ultra-violence? Or will we get an altogether different story that taps into a different part of his psyche? James Mangold's Logan already told us a tale that would have slotted nicely into PlayStation's sad dad canon, as X-23 tapped into the softer side of his adamantium body. So I do hope we don't just get a rerun of that idea here. We also know that Saros is on the way from Housemarque in March, and it certainly looked impressive in the most recent State of Play stream. As for Naughty Dog, the ground zero of this long-running era of grief, we know that the studio will be
Sorry. What a way to frame it.
taking on the sci-fi realm next with Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet. Its first trailer was promising, delivering a more fun-filled tone than we'd ever dream of seeing from The Last of Us.
Wait, fun-filled? Did he say fun-filled?
First trailer was promising, delivering a more fun-filled tone than we'd ever dream of seeing from The Last of Us.
I mean, like, was it though? Like, genuine question. Did anybody watch that trailer and think it came off as fun-filled? Like, I didn't. Like, it's not to say it's bad, but it didn't come off as fun-filled to me. Like, it definitely seemed like a Naughty Dog game, like a lot of very kind of quiet, sort of whispery dialogue about stuff you're not really sure what it has to do with. Like, maybe, okay, let's be fair. I already have the trailer pulled up. Let's just play a little snippet. Is this fun-filled?
Years. Anyone who even flies close to it is never heard from again.
Superstitions.
No. Superstitions are the crazy rumors about what happened on that planet. These are facts.
You worry too much.
You know what I worry just to write about? I say we wait for him to leave, or how about we find a new lead? He's not worth it. I'm wasting my time, aren't I?
Can you please claim him? I don't need another hunter swooping in.
Who is swooping? No one is crazy enough to go there.
He clearly is.
He is clearly desperate.
And so am I, so claim him, or I will find another agent.
That's what deal with your fucking shit. Okay, alright, you know what? There, you're the boss.
Thank you.
Listen, kid.
I mean, I genuinely don't see it. Like, again, it's not to say it's bad. I just genuinely don't see how you could call that fun-filled. I just, that's genuinely surprising. But anyway.
Of course, we've barely scratched the surface here, but it would be fantastic to see Naughty Dog rediscovering some of that Uncharted levity here.
Okay, he has to be sarcastic, right? Like, look at this thing, dude. Neil has said that they're gonna be like, okay, let me find the exact quote. I don't want anybody being like, you misquote him. Druckmann, Intergalactic. Okay, this is a quote. The story explores, quote, what happens when you put your faith in different institutions. It's centered on a fictional religion and includes science fiction elements, taking inspiration from anime like Akira and Cowboy Bebop, applying techniques learned in creating Uncharted and The Last of Us. Developers sought to expand on gameplay elements. They created thousands of years of history for Semperia's religion. They wanted the player to feel lost and alone, particularly or partly achieved by the lack of non-playable allies like other Naughty Dog games. I don't think it's gonna feel like old school Uncharted or feel silly and lighthearted. I'm sorry. He's gotta be sarcastic. Like, there's no way he's being real when he's like, I hope they recapture the silly, lighthearted things of Uncharted. Like, there's just no way.
Here, but it would be fantastic to see Naughty Dog rediscovering some of that Uncharted levity here. Both of these
Timothy, British people, shake my head. Oh man, I like, again, I can't stress this enough. It doesn't mean that Intergalactic will be bad. I am not saying that. I'm just saying, based on the trailer and literally everything we know about the game, I don't know how you could say that it is looking like lighthearted or fun, and like, I just genuinely don't see that. I mean, it seems like a little bit of cope, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. I just genuinely don't know how you watch that trailer and read what we know about it and come off as like, yeah, this maybe, like, there's no way.
These upcoming PS5 games, incidentally, are stories about people investigating lost off-world colonies. I hope for my sake that they find wildly different stories to tell on each of them, rather than discover reminders of the grief they've left behind.
Now, locking it in now, the next few big PlayStation games are going to take heavy inspiration from Elden Ring. There's going to be far less narrative exposition. There's going to be a lot more mysterious stuff that is not really explained, except for maybe in one scroll with 3 words that you're supposed to infer 15 pages of world building. I think that that's probably where they're going. So yeah, I don't think they're looking to Uncharted of 2009 for inspiration. I think they're looking back to like Elden Ring for inspiration, much more likely.
After every death, I always come back stronger.
Arms,
For more on
the
Ghost of
game.
Yotai, make sure to check out our review.
So, interesting video, Simon. I will say interesting video. I think genuinely, I understand what is being said. A lot of the games, and I think, you know, the vibe is certainly that a lot of PlayStation's biggest ticket games and the biggest ones on the AAA side have focused on darker themes. They're more gritty and grounded, in large part probably inspired by Naughty Dog's efforts. I think that's clear that that's where they've started to shift. But I think part of the reason they shifted there is because that's what gamers are connecting with and are happy about and buying. So, and it's also what critics are rewarding with Game of the Year awards and with high Metacritic scores and stuff. So I think it's emergent out of a sort of player base that is hungry for something like that. Do I think things are going to change? No, I mean, sort of. Things will shift and will move, and in 5 years we'll look back and we will see how we progressed into where we are at that point. But I don't think there's going to be some massive correction back to like silly lighthearted games or anything, because I think we do still get some of those and they perform well. It's just when you're talking about spending $200 million on a game, it needs to be a sure bet and one that you know the audience has demonstrated that they are interested in and that they like. And that's seemingly what they're going to do here. And you can have intense stories with dark, gritty stuff explored, and also have some lighthearted moments in it. It doesn't have to just be a misery simulator like some games can certainly turn into. I mean, even Expedition 33, there are some genuinely silly moments in that game. With like, you remember when you meet Monaco? There will be fighting. Like, it's just a quick little line, but it genuinely made me laugh out loud.
The question. I will never join you again.
There will be a lot of fighting, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
There will be a lot of fighting.
Exactly.
Count me in then.
Good.
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 Yes, good.
No case.
Like, it was genuinely pretty funny. Like, and there's plenty of these moments in the game where it's like things are really intense, but then there's just a little bitty moment where things are just like a little silly, and it just makes you chuckle. And that's how you keep it balanced. Like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, little misery, little joy, little goofy, little depression. Like, that's how you make a modern story that connects with modern audiences. And I think it's also a reflection of modern individual sentiments, certainly, where there's a lot of darkness in this world, but we often are looking for a break from the misery. You still have to deal with the misery, but you want a break every once in a while. You want a breather. You want something to take your mind off of it and to not have to deal with it anymore. And that's not a problem. You know, again, it's a reflection of the time in which we are existing. And so we're just navigating it as best we can, right? We're just navigating it. So anyway, interesting video. I personally do not feel, how do I put it? I personally am not convinced that there's like a problem right now with how PlayStation games are doing it, or that every PlayStation game is telling the same story. I guess, again, specifically, we can point to games like Expedition 33, but he's specifically bringing up PlayStation games, not just industry-wide games. But I think, again, what Sony's trying to do is they're trying to fill the hole in the market that their audience and their customers are looking for them to fill and engage with. And so they are connecting where they think that they can. And even within their own first party library, there's been other games that they have put out that have connected with players in a more lighthearted way. It's just, you know, the biggest stuff is giving players what they want. The problem is the live service investments. I mean, that's a massive problem. I don't know if that's the problem with this particular thing, but it is a massive problem. Yeah. Wasting billions on nonsense that you cancel or that you launch and then unlaunch. That's certainly a component. Let's do, I can close, oh crap, I closed the tab. I closed the damn tab. Here it is. Okay. Real quick little thing, just to mention this for everybody. New mini sort of segment thing. Also, G Sus says with a $5 super chat, thank you. Saw the Game Pass video. PC gaming is so much cheaper for games. I always tell people to check out Humble Bundle, Warhammer Bundle right now for $12. Yeah, Humble Bundle is a great value. Absolutely. And then Darth Life Alex, also thank you for the 5. 36 Australian dollar dues per month to own nothing seems ridiculous, especially when you can get a masterpiece like Red Dead 2 for $20 and play for a few hundred hours. Yeah, well, and I think, again, that $30, the reason the $30 price point was so jarring for people is I think it's or why it was such a big deal is I think because it was sort of that splash of cold water in the morning on your face, where it's just enough to make you kind of snap out of it and reevaluate. And I think when people reevaluated, they were like, it just doesn't really make sense. Humble Bumba. Yeah, Humble Bumba for the win. Let's talk about this real quick. So Black Ops 7, I wanted to say 6. Black Ops 7 had its early access beta. And according to most metrics, specifically comparing it to like Battlefield 6's beta that they had earlier this year, just a handful of weeks ago, it's not doing as well as you would have thought for Call of Duty, which is one of the biggest games out there. Now, this is given two specific metrics. For one, like Steam concurrent users, which we can track. Counterpoint to that is obviously a lot of people play Call of Duty either on console or they play it through Battle.net, through like the Xbox app or something. So they don't play through Steam directly. Sure, fair point. I think a lot of people do play through Steam, but sure, maybe the majority are playing on other platforms. So we can maybe discount these numbers that we'll look at in just a second on that regard. The other one that is platform agnostic is Twitch viewership and engagement, which is also quite telling. So what happened? Well, Black Ops 7's beta debuted, as Insider Gaming has put it, to woeful numbers on two major platforms. Again, specifically Steam and Twitch, if we look at those. So as you can see, on Steam, Call of Duty has produced a 24-hour peak of just under 75,000 users. By comparison, Battlefield 6's peak at the same point during the early access beta window was around 335,000. 335, hold on. I'm gonna quick algorithmic check. 335 K 75 K. Yep, that's what we're dealing. This is bigger. Confirmed. So given that we know the number is bigger. They also say on Twitch, Black Ops 7 has 185,000 views at the time of publishing, while at a similar time in the beta window, Battlefield 6 had 504,000 players or viewers.
ASA donated $3.
Well, thank you.
I tried the Battlefield 6 beta and Black Ops 7 beta. The former impressed me on multiple levels, and I acknowledge that it's been a while since a good Battlefield game was released.
True.
Black Ops 7 just felt like Infinite Warfare.
It cut off. And they didn't send me an email with it. But in terms of sentiment, thank you for the $3. I think a lot of people, and we'll talk about the nuance of this in just a second, but looking at the viewership, 185,000 viewers versus 504 at the peak on Twitch. And even now, I mean, what are we dealing with? Let's see. Twitch tracker, making sure you are human. There's 96,000 right now. You can see it just spiked again. Yesterday, average daily. Okay. And so there's people like Lyric who are at 14,000. Tim the Tatman's at 9,100. Nade Shots at 4,000. Nick Merckx is at 3,000. Scump is at 10,000. So like there's a handful of pretty big streamers. Symphony is at 1,800. Might have just started. So there's some big streamers on here playing, and they're chilling, doing, like, by most accounts, pretty solid numbers. But I think it is just fascinating that there's so much more interest, at the very least, in Battlefield 6. Now, there's a difference between interest and like their actual commitment of buying or playing. There's a difference. There's also just a general curiosity. A lot of people were talking about Battlefield 6. That does not necessarily mean that a lot of people are going to buy it at full price, right? Like a lot of Call of Duty fans are interested in being like, what's this about? They check it out and they're like, yeah, I liked it, but I play Call of Duty every year. And so they just go there. So I genuinely, looking at this, I don't think this is necessarily like terrible news for Call of Duty. Obviously the headline is going to do well because like people are kind of rooting for Call of Duty to fail, but I think it's more a point of praise for Battlefield. Not necessarily a diss on Call of Duty, just more a point of praise for Battlefield, that there is that much interest and engagement on it. People want to see an alternative to Call of Duty sort of arise. And I think competition is really, really healthy. And I think it's going to force Call of Duty to make some changes that will be helpful and will be good. Just like with Marvel Rivals coming out, it forced Overwatch to make some much needed quality of life improvements to the game, when previously they were just kind of sitting on their hands, not seemingly doing a whole lot. So I think that this is good. Futuristic Nicki Minaj skin incoming. They'll eventually do it for sure. They'll eventually do it. I think like there was never going to be any world in which, like, as some people framed it, Call of Duty is dead, Battlefield 6 takes over. That was never going to happen. Call of Duty is so huge, it would never happen like that. But what would happen is that Battlefield 6 comes out and gets a little sliver of market share. And then next year with Battlefield, or the year after with Battlefield 7, they get a little bit more market share. And all along the way, as they start to get more market share and more players shifting over and committing to Battlefield over Call of Duty, then you start to see Call of Duty trying harder and making some like pro consumer and pro audience moves and the stuff that the community has wanted and asked for a long time. Cracking down harder on cheaters and coming up with some fix for skill-based matchmaking, if you consider that a problem. And so I think that there was never going to be a situation where, like, overnight Call of Duty Black Ops 7 only sells 500,000 copies. Like, that literally could never happen. It's just that huge at this point. So it's not necessarily too big to fail. It's that it's too big to flop. I think it can underperform. I think it could get to the point where, like, player engagement falls off and they start to see recurrent spending drop off and people will start to shift over and experiment with other stuff. But at the end of the day, competition is good. Everybody should be rooting for Battlefield 6 to do well because it's going to force Call of Duty to do better. And, you know, for Battlefield to be hungry is good because it means that they're also going to try pushing and pushing and pushing. And I think all of that is a good thing. And hopefully it just ends up with better games at the end of the day, which we can only hope for, right? That's all we can hope for. Easy win for the Battlefield 6 campaign over Black Ops 7, I'm telling you right now. Oh, we'll see. I'm with all of these, I'm like, I don't know if it's even worth, like, really getting that engaged in it, because it's probably, like, they're both probably going to be like 3 hours long. You know, like, I'm just braced for them to be hilariously short and probably, like, lackluster or fine, but nothing that crazy. Silver Kitten, thank you for the 5. Should ADHD be a theme tackled in games? I have an idea for it. If you watch K-pop Demon Hunters, you can see that its themes is big but not serious. Do I think ADHD should be tackled as a theme in gaming? Maybe it already is. Maybe some of these, like, maybe some of these, like, Assassin's Creed open world games are like that. Because it's like, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy, ooh, piece of candy. And there's, like, not a lot of meat on the bone anywhere. It's just, like, little bitty things that you grab. So, like, collectathons, maybe collectathons are just ADHD games personified. I could actually see an argument for that popping up. So perhaps it might already be explored right now. As for K-pop Demon Hunters, yeah, the themes are big but not serious. Well, there's a difference between themes and tone. Like, you can explore intense themes, but the tone can be more lighthearted and sillier. Like, you can explore something really intense with a lighthearted tone, like Jojo Rabbit. Have you ever seen Jojo Rabbit? Jojo Rabbit is not a movie for, like, the faint of heart. It explores some pretty serious themes. Like, literally, like, you are in like, exploring the Hitler Youth in World War II with, like, the SS looking for Jews hiding in the attic. And yet the tone is Taika Waititi, like, silly, goofy, fairly lighthearted, even though it's exploring serious themes. The tone is lighter. And because the tone is lighter, they're able to have these moments of variability where there's like silly, goofy moments, and then there's really intense, serious moments with the shoes. You know, if you know, you know. But they're able to have that punch of the shoe reveal, no spoilers other than the shoes, because they also had moments of levity elsewhere, you know? And I think that that's what makes that movie work. So I think, again, there's a difference between themes and tone, and you shouldn't conflate the two, because you can explore serious themes in a lighthearted tone, and you can explore lighthearted themes in a serious tone, and that can also be very entertaining, where it's something totally unserious, but the people in that universe take it extremely seriously, and that's where the entertainment lies at the same time. You know, like, what was that one? I vaguely remember it. There was like, was it Zach Galifianakis? I think he did. Oh, Baskets. Zach Galifianakis was in this show. Chip Baskets has always dreamed of being a classically trained clown. After flunking out of French clown college, primarily or probably due to his inability to understand French, he returns home to Bakersfield, California, where he moves in with his mother, bickers with his twin brother, Dale, and longs for his sophisticated Parisian ex-wife while he pursues his dream to be a professional clown. It's a pretty silly theme, but it's explored very, very seriously. Which is where the entertainment lies, right? Like, so you could explore very silly themes in a serious way, and it can be entertaining. You can explore very serious themes in a silly way, and it can be entertaining. It's pretty awesome. So, yeah, anyway. Vessel, thank you for that. Black Ops 7 has already sold roughly 420,000 units, excluding PC, and made an estimated $31.5 million in the US alone. Hard to say that that's good or bad for the publisher's KPIs, but so far it doesn't seem too bad. We'll see how it develops. Yeah, I mean, it's for something like Black Ops 7, I think the worst thing for them would be if they saw player engagement dropping off. Like if they saw players dropping it after a couple of weeks, or they stopped spending on season passes and they stopped spending on this and that. That's when they would get really, really worried. Yeah, I don't know how many copies they've sold or what their expectations are, but it's the recurrent revenue that they're keeping a very close eye on. So, yeah. Oh yeah, look at this. Synth Potato clipped a bunch of screenshots from various tweets and was just like, what is happening to Xbox in the last 24 hours? Is this what brand collapse looks like? Because it's the announcement of the price hikes, and then it's the reveal that they're going to launch cloud gaming with ads. So they say internal testing for 1 hour sessions with up to 5 hours free a month. So you can play up to 5 hours, and then you watch ads every hour of gameplay, I guess. And then they also revealed that they are seemingly removing most subscriber DLC discounts. So if you want to buy DLC, you don't get the discount. Same with like microtransactions on in-game currency, things like that. And then also they've started blasting full screen ads, which they've done for a while, to be fair. They've done this type of thing before, but they're blasting ads for Game Pass Ultimate upgrades on people's home screens when they log in. Because of course they are. so there you go. Xbox, price increases are never fun for anybody. Is this really what we're doing? Okay. So be it. Jesus. Yeah, I'm sure it's really hard for you guys. Like, it's hard for us. Do you have any idea how many of you guys unsubscribed? We're freaking out, man. This is really hard. I mean, no, we're not going to do anything differently, but it's hard, man. We're sad about it. God damn it. Henrik Arts, or Henrik Art, thank you for the sub over on Twitch. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you. Anyway, it's nonsense. Absolute nonsense, man. Absolute nonsense. Okay, fam. I'm going to call it there. We are going to be back on Monday. We should be able to return to our regularly scheduled programming, including the podcast with Jor and all of that. This week we were supposed to do it, but then my computer melted, and so that kind of threw things for a loop. But we are back. Knock on wood. Hopefully with no more PC melting, and we should be good to go. Okay. You guys have a fantastic weekend. Have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday and Sunday. I will see you Monday. And maybe we do like a deep dive on Ghost of Yotei thoughts and everything at that point. It's going to be good. Okay. How's the dog? Dog is very good. He got a new sweater. It's all pumpkins and everything. It's very cute. Very, very cute. Anyway, much love. I'll see you guys soon. Hugs and kisses.